good, FameLab. So, what rhymes with epilepsy? Pepsi? Narcolepsy? Alex, you're looking very sexy. No, yes, no. In the UK, where we've got 500, 600,000 people with epilepsy, that's 1 in 100, and this IMAX fits 400, so I'm looking for at least 4 more for my boy band. What rhymes with epilepsy is a 76-year-old woman. Yes, now this woman, she presented with seizures. After going to the doctor and getting medication for it, she presented with hypergraphias, that's compulsive writing. But she did it in the form of poetry, and no one really knows why. Was it due to the seizures? Was it due to the medication, or a mixture of both? Unsure. And that case study really sets a story for what we understand about epilepsy. A lot, but not a whole lot. Way in the past, it was seen as the disease of the holy. These people were having seizures and speaking to God, so they were revered. More recently, it's been people who are unclean or invaded by spirits, and so they should be destroyed. What I'm saying is there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides of the spectrum. But what really is it? Well, I'm going to get explicit. It's a condition meaning that your brain might fire on synchronized rhythms. And you're probably wondering, Alex, why is rhythm bad? You know, people say I need more rhythm in my life. Well, when it comes to the nervous system, one thing is fundamental. It's that every potential action, it requires an action potential. Just call it a nerve impulse. But it's just the consequence of neural membrane ion exchange, because you get a resulting difference that depolarizes and repolarizes your neurons. What? Okay, like a Mexican wave, charge, it falls and rises and then carries on again. Because each of your neurons, it relays an electrical message, and then it gets to rest for like a millisecond. And that could be for anything from lifting a cup to tapping your head while doing a weird belly rub. But when you're having a seizure, you're not feeling like a winner, because your brain, it starts firing in patterns like angry synchronized swimmers. Normally, you're walking and talking. Your brain, neurons are firing off, sort of like random. But when you're having a seizure, clustering starts a pattern. So normally, walking, talking, doing things, it can be described sort of something like... But when you're having a seizure, it's hypersynchronous neuronal activity at some point in the brain. So it's more like... And that's what leads to the seizure. It's not really useful information in your body. You just start having a seizure. But what gives you epilepsy? Well, it can be genetic or acquired. I'll start with the former, then I'll move to the latter. It's required. Because sometimes these seizures, they reflect a single gene defect causing neuronal upset, or else it can be more indirect, like a stuntman who hits his head internally bled with no O2 fed, because normally in the UK, one of the reasons is due to stroke or tumours, this brain damage. Okay, what leads to seizures? Well, yeah, you're kind of right, but there are other triggers apart from flashing lights, low blood sugar, maybe high stress, or really any imbalance in what's in your head. Okay, I've got some time over, I've got some science over, but I've got some time left. There is one more thing I think I need to address. You can say brainstorm. We don't get offended. There is one thing it needs to be appended. If you see someone having a seizure, put them in a recovery position, just sit, and don't stick anything in the mouth. They can't swallow this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Very well done. Judges, your 2 minutes of questions, please.
Thank you, Alex, for that lovely, lovely talk. I very much enjoyed that. And I was fascinated by the example you gave of the woman with epilepsy, and it presented itself with her outpourings of poetry and creative writing. Are there other examples of that kind of effect, where someone has suffered epilepsy and they just nail some kind of creative activity?
Well, some people think that some forms of epilepsy can lead to sort of this savant syndrome. So, again, she had temporal lobe epilepsy, so this part of the brain, and that can damage, sort of change there, can lead to these sorts of things like some people have said, sort of savant syndrome. But what's really interesting, like you say that, like these seizures in the brain, different parts of the brain, it can lead to things like auras, which are sort of like just previously, before you have a seizure, you can start, in some cases, people start hearing things. And that's, I think, quite interesting, because it all depends on different parts of the brain that have the seizure. It's quite cool.
I really like your sort of rapping, poetic
Thanks, man.
delivery, which is, I went to the very first FameLab final. I've never heard that kind of delivery before, which is great. And you study cancer pathways in the body. But you chose epilepsy, presumably. Is there greater rapping potential in epilepsy?
Yeah, that, and I have epilepsy. So it's a personal thing for me, because like epilepsy is one of those things, like I mentioned, it's 500 to 600,000 people in the UK have it. And so chances are someone in this room knows someone who's been affected by it. And because it's one of those hidden diseases, like it's medicated, right? People have medication for it, and that can control the seizures. But like 33% of people don't respond, like aren't controlled by their medication. And so they've got their life to lead. So I think being able to talk about this in front of all of these wonderful people and having them go out and go, oh, hey man, I learned something new about epilepsy. Do you want to talk about it? That might be, that might be great. I thought, thank you.
Very entertaining, Alex. I see why you were speaking about epilepsy. Can you do the same for maths, computers, and small proteins to target cancer pathways? I mean, do you talk about a lot of different topics?
I mean, what rap about it? Or just talk about
Be
it?
as entertaining with it. I mean, are you, do you talk about a lot of issues at
So
events like this?
So you want to talk about my work?
I want to talk about your work, yeah.
Okay, so I work on something called coiled coils, right? And so these are two little proteins you can bring together, and they can form these transcription factors. I'm shying away from calling it what's called in nomenclature the type of packing. It's called knobs into holes packing. So I'm shying, I realise this might be the one place to say it. And so if you think of like a handshake coming together, this is how this transcription factor forms. So it binds, it's a molecule that binds to the DNA and controls certain genes being upregulated, downregulated. And the ones we're looking at are ones that have an effect on cancer pathways. So sort of like whenever Donald Trump gives a handshake, something bad happens. So we want to stop that from happening. So I come in with what I've designed, a sort of a Robocop hand that I've designed computationally and then built. And then we go, okay, yep, no, we're going to shake your hand, make sure you can't do anything. And that's what I do.
In the 3 years of my PhD on transcription factors, I wish I had the opportunity again to write about knobs and holes and
So your two eyes lit up with glee. Oh, this material right.
We were taking notes.
Well, that is all the time we've got for questions, I'm afraid. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thanks, Alex.
massive round of applause.